Hey, ¿qué pasa, Calexico? Welcome back to the podcast. Like always, before we begin, I want to thank a couple of people. First of all, I want to thank my friends here at Calexico Brewing Company for allowing me to record today's episode here, and also for the beer. And
yes,
even though it's a Tuesday evening, it's a school night. But I also want to thank my anchor sponsors. I want to thank. I need to take on my list. I can remember. I always forget. My anchor sponsors are really, really important to the podcast. I want to thank my friend Jake, Camilo, John Cabrera, Edward Velasquez, Eddie Lopez from Roots Creative, Norma Galindo. I want to thank my friends at Sergio's Tacos and Hotdogs with 8 years of experience serving the Imperial, San Diego, and Yuma counties with Mexicali-style hot dogs and taquizas. Contact Sergio at 760-562-0057 or on Facebook, just look for Sergio's Tacos and Hotdogs. Finally, I want to thank David Gastelum. If you're thinking of buying or selling a home in the Imperial or San Diego counties, make sure you contact David. He's not only a realtor, but an investor with over 20 years of experience, and he'll teach you along the way in one of the most important investments of your life. So today, my guest is somebody that I kind of been following for a while because he had the pleasure of working with Esdras Ochoa, and then he went on to help him open one of his restaurants in Hong Kong. And while there, he lived through some experiences. So I thought, it would be a really, really fun conversation to kind of, get to know him a little bit, get to know his story, working in the food industry, and then going to Hong Kong and living through some cool stuff. Well, I mean, not
cool is a relative term.
So my guest today is Heric Rubio. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Before we get into the working with Esdras, going to Hong Kong and all that stuff, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
About myself. Well, I guess I'll just start when I started in the Valley. I got here in the Valley, Calexico, which I don't know, 8th grade. Grew up, skated. I wasn't really into school or anything. So it was cool. I graduated. I walked, which is an accomplishment for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But then I just, after high school, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do and everything. I ended up going into English and journalism. So I was lucky enough through all that to get a job in the Imperial Valley Press, and I worked there for a year as a journalist covering Calexico and Mexicali and whatnot. And that's where my passion for food started. Well, I'd always liked food, and I'd always had friends that worked in the food industry. But one of my articles was doing a feature on the food scene in Mexicali. And so I was out there for a day, going to different restaurants, seeing what it was like to be a chef and what kind of food was that out there and blah, blah. And it really sparked it, Mm-hmm. I had always kind of wanted to make that jump into kitchens. And it was that one story and experience of being in the kitchens that really sparked it. And so, I sat down and thought about it for a week because it's really smart, and I was like, nah, it's stupid, but I did it anyway. And so I just decided to transition over to kitchens, made the move back to San Diego, and just worked my way up, and that's pretty much it, and that was almost 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And since then it's just been restaurants and kitchens and food and eating and everything that comes along with that whole industry. And there's been some bad experiences, but there's been some really, really, really good experiences that's come out of it.
Because I worked I worked at Applebee's. I know it's not high end cooking, but there's this rush. I remember reading Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential.
It's the best. Everybody should.
Yeah, and I mean, I think everybody should read it. But once you're a line cook, you kind of even when I saw that movie.
Is it Chef or
no? It's a comic. Ryan Reynolds is in it.
Oh, Waiting. I just watched it for the millionth time. 3 nights ago.
And when the first time I saw it, I was like, it's an alright movie.
Yeah.
But once I started working in a kitchen and I was a line cook, like it's like a totally different, like you relate so much to that.
You
movie.
relate, and it's, you know, whether it's a line cook at Applebee's or, you know, a garde-manger at some 3-star Michelin in France, like that's an experience that's shared across the world.
Yeah.
No matter who it is, yeah.
It's a rush when, you know, there's like a rush and then you're like throwing down shit on the grill or on the flat over the fryer, and then like once it comes down and like there's this mess and you're like, shit.
And it's just like but then there's that feeling during the rush, during the hit, when you're just like, fuck. I'm sorry, do I have to censor myself? Okay, cool.
No.
You're just like, fuck, and it's just all going crazy, and you're yelling at the dude over here, and the server back here is like yap about I don't know what, and it's like, you just 2 minutes, that's it, you know. But no, it's an exhilarating thing, and I think as far as like working in kitchens and everything, what I tell people, you know, and I've had a lot of really, really good mentors, that I wouldn't have been able to get to where I am had it not been for them. But what I tell people is working in a restaurant in general, not just kitchen, but working in a restaurant in general, will teach you a lot about life. It'll teach you about how to deal with different types of people in your everyday life. It'll teach you how to deal with stress. It'll teach you, it'll teach you how to enjoy the better things in life, to be honest, you know? And so, you know, regardless of all those, like, you know, you hear the horror stories and all that, like it's a very, very good teachable time of someone's life if they work in a restaurant.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. When you decided to go into, you know, food and cooking and all this, did you go to school or was it just
Nah. So what happened was, so like I said, you know, I was working at the newspaper and I said, all right, well, here's my 2 weeks. You know, after that, I'm out. I moved up to San Diego. Luckily, I had a friend that let me stay on his floor for a little while. I had no idea. I had no leads. I had no nothing. People were telling me like, this is the stupidest thing you could do right now. You know, working in a restaurant is retarded. Excuse my politically incorrect phrase. But working in a restaurant is like not good.
Smart.
You know? Yeah, it's not smart. Like, but I was like, you know what? Like, what else am I gonna do? You know, I already made the decision. I'm already here. And so I was like, I just need to get in the door somehow, one way or another. And my first job was at a little Philly cheesesteak place in Golden Hills, San Diego. It's called Georgino's. And they were kind enough to take in this inexperienced dude that had no sort of experience in a restaurant ever, stick me on the kitchen and show me how to do things. And for whatever reason, like I caught on, you know, I was like, all right, let's make some cheesesteaks. Let's get it done, you know. And like I said, like I had a lot of friends that worked in that were working in the restaurant industry already. So I had a little bit of an idea, but never the experience. And so I fell in love with it instantly. It wasn't even like I don't know, maybe this is cool. No, it was like from day one, like I love this shit. And so, you know, like I learned, you know, the basics. I think the basic thing you have to learn is speed and consistency and how to work clean and whatnot.
Clean as you go.
Yeah, exactly. Clean as you go. And so I did that. I was like, okay, I'm ready to move on to something else. And I moved on to another place. And eventually where I learned a lot of like skills was at Cowboy Star. It's like a fine dining steakhouse over in San Diego, East Village. But that right there was like, okay, this is cooking, you know. And not that anything else before that wasn't cooking, but it was where I learned a lot, where I met a lot of people that showed me, and that's where I decided this is what I'm gonna do. You know, I love writing. It's what I studied and everything. And that itself gave me a lot of good experiences. You know, I met a lot of people that I admired within writing. And so that was cool and everything. But, I can't sit at a computer, you know, all day, you know. So, yeah, that's kind of how I got into it.
Okay, so, and those are the only two places you worked before
No, so I worked at a few different places. So I started at Georgino's, and then from there I went to this spot called Tacos Perla, which is like the brainchild of like a real estate developer over in San Diego. And it was good. It was good food. It was very popular. But you know, coming from Calexico, being Mexican, and like, you know, having Chicali right there, you know, whenever making tacos is like, I mean, they're good. Like, don't get me wrong, I love them, you know. Pero I've been doing this my whole life. But it was a very good opportunity, and I'm not taking it away from it. But it did show me. I was able to work with a couple like well-known taqueros, whose name I can't remember now. His name was Oso. I don't remember his real name, but he has like some good spots over in TJ and everything. And then from there, I moved over to Bracero, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was owned, and its executive main chef was Javier Plasencia, who's well known in the Baja Med scene. He has Animalon and a few other spots down in Valle de Guadalupe.
Oh, okay.
So he's a very, very, very well known, and what I learned there at Bracero was an appreciation for, I guess, more like the seafood side of Mexican food, like ceviches and aguachiles and stuff like that, which I grew to love. So that is what I took from there. Also there, the chef de cuisine was Claudette Cepeda, and she's been on Top Chef Mexico a couple times. She has got a couple places in San Diego. So that was also another good spot to learn more about Mexican food that I didn't personally know about, other than tacos and stuff like that, you know? And it's also where I learned an appreciation for homemade tortillas, because I can't find any here, like at a restaurant. You know, you go to a taco shop and you can't.
Yeah, and you know that's one post where I was like, because I had thought about interviewing you before, but when you put that post, I was like, you know what, it's time for me to, you know, reach out.
Okay, that's what's up.
And so how did you go from, you know, working in San Diego in these places to, you know, hooking up with Esdras?
So I had worked, Esdras I've known since we were kids. Like, him and his family and my family went to church together growing up here in Calexico. And so we've, you know, known each other since we were like young, you know, doing dumb kid stuff or whatever. And he's a few years older than me. And so, you know, he graduated high school, I graduated high school, we did our own thing and blah, blah, blah. He started off in fashion and all that. And then, you know, after all that, he started up his, like in LA with his Mexicali taco, like the little like cart on the corner that turned into what he is now, you know, which is awesome. And myself, you know, I did my own thing. I graduated, and when I went into food, into the restaurant industry, he had already been in it for a while, and he's living in LA, and he came out of San Diego, and he stopped at the Tacos Perla shop where I was working. He had some food, and he was like, oh, it's really good, and all this, you know. To me, it was like, cool, I appreciate it. To me, it was more than anything, it was seeing a good friend, you know. And then a couple months later, I think he hit me up, and he was like, hey, you know, we're gonna have a booth at Coachella. Do you want to come work? I was like, of course. Like, why would I not want to? Why would I not want to do it? He's like, we're gonna be in the VIP section, all day pass, and blah blah. Bet, like, I'm down, like, for sure. And so yeah, we did it, and that was a crazy experience. We were all it was like, I want to say like 8 to 10 of us just like piled up in this like little. Oh, it wasn't little house, but it was. It wasn't fit for 8 to 10 people. But it was cool. It was a good experience, you know, like serving that moment right there taught me what it was to serve just people like crazy, like boom, boom, boom. I got this. Hey, I need this or this. Hey, I need more guacamole made, lady. One thing I always remember about that experience is he showed me how to like properly cut an avocado, you know. I'd cut millions of avocados in my life, you know. He's like, this is the best way, and I can't even explain it. I just do it automatically now. But, you know, that was a really, really good experience. So after that, you know, we kept in touch here and there. And then he was opening up Salazar in LA, his second restaurant. And he asked me if I wanted to like go and help him open it, you know, and I told him, you know what, I'm still learning, you know, I'm not quite ready for that. He's like, no, that's cool. I appreciate that. But I told him, if anything comes up in the future, I'm good, you know, like, just give me some time. He's like, yeah, for sure. And so then years passed. I did my own thing. I went on and learned. And then I'd been in San Diego for like 10 years. And I was like, I need a break. So I came back to the Valley. I told myself, I'm going to give myself a year. 1 year, and then not think about anything, you know, but that last week, the last week of the year, then I'm going to start thinking, I'm going to make a decision. Because myself, if I think too much, but if I just give myself like a day, like do it now and let's go.
Like a timeline.
Like, there's no choice. And so I was working at Inferno in Brawley at the time. And it was like almost exactly a year. A lot of stuff happened during that 1 week that I gave myself where I was like, regardless, I just got to quit, you know? And so I got back to my apartment and I'm watching, I don't know if you've ever seen Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know how sometimes when they're like during service, they'll go and talk to the audience or like, you know, the customers and just, and so I never watched this show. Never had I watched it. But I watched it from the beginning of the season up to, and this particular day was towards one of the like last 3 episodes, I think. And so I'm watching and thinking about what's next, having a couple beers, you know, blah, blah, chilling. I'm watching and it was during service and they put the camera on Esdras and he's like, oh, I think it's so cool, like seeing everything. I was like, oh shit. And so he was already in Hong Kong.
Okay.
He was already in Hong Kong. I already knew he had this thing going on. Excuse me. And so I snap a picture, send it to him like, hey, I just saw you on TV. Like, I hope everything's going good out there and all that. And I expect an answer. You know, he's a busy guy. 5 minutes later, he's like, hey, what's up, man? What are you up to? I was like, nothing, chilling. He's like, no, what are you up to? I was like, honestly, like, I'm just trying to figure out my next move. And he says, I can almost remember seeing the text exactly. Like, don't even think, you know, just come to Hong Kong. I was like, all right. All right. 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks later, I landed and it was crazy because he had to, in between the time he told me and the time that I got there, he had to leave. So I knew nobody.
Wow.
Nobody. But it was, but yeah, it was cool. It was that's how I ended up there.
So when you got there, you were in charge of the kitchen, or
when I got there, it was a little tricky because when I got there, you know, I'm some new dude. I'm some like, you know, some foreigner, guaylo as they call them.
And that's what
guaylo means white ghost.
okay.
Yeah, but that's what foreigners, expats, I guess is. More expats than immigrants. There's like a whole dividing barrier between expats and immigrants. But yeah, so I get there, you know, and the whole kitchen was it was all local Hong Kong kids. Really, really good people, but you know, there's a different way of working between like over there and over here. And so to them, I'm just like some dude, you know. They already had their leader. They had their who was in charge and this and that. And who the fuck am I to say anything, you know? Especially without Esdras being there.
Yeah.
To say like, hey, you know, he knows what's up. And so at first I was like, you know what? I'm just going to like ease into it. Just however you guys do. I got to learn because I would hate it if someone went into a kitchen I was working at and be like, no, you got to do this. Like,
yeah, especially somebody that's like not... I mean, if you're not like a known chef or...
Exactly. Yeah, so I can understand that. So I was like, you know what? You just tell me what you need. Tell me what you need and we'll work it out. And so eventually after a couple of months, like the team changed and everything. And then I was running the kitchen, you know, making sure everything was tasting proper. You know, make sure everything was all good. Everyone was working together. The whole team changed. And it became such a different dynamic that everyone worked well together. Not all the time, you know, there's always conflict in the kitchen. But everyone worked well together. Everyone was friends and everything. It was great. So I was in charge of the kitchen. Maybe like maybe a year and a half into being there, our general manager left. He went on to do his own thing, which props to him. And they were searching for a new general manager. I was like, you know what? Like, why not? Like, I told him, like, consider me. Consider me. And they took it into consideration. It wasn't like an instant decision, but they considered, like, okay, because I wanted to learn everything about a restaurant, not just the kitchen, not just, not everything, every little aspect. And yeah, they gave me the opportunity. So I stepped up to general manager, running the whole restaurant, making sure everything was running smooth. It's not easy. It's not an easy job, but it was worth it. Learned a lot. Working in the actual kitchen, you're just there in like those little 4 walls with the fire and the heat and everything. And so anything going out there, fuck you. But you learn to appreciate the whole restaurant in general, working on the floor. Knowing everything that's going on. Yeah,
because a restaurant that has like, a kitchen, has a bar, has all the servers, front of the house. It's like different parts moving.
Yeah. It's like a whole living creature with each different part, and every part thinks they're the most important, but neither part is the most important. If one part doesn't work, then the other part's gonna suffer, and it's all just gonna fall apart. Yeah. And so that's what was important to me, was to learn how to manage each part and not necessarily keep them happy to a sense, but more so like just keep them working together. There's a lot of different personalities and they're going to clash, but it's important to let that clash be minimal.
Did all the people you work with speak English or?
Yeah, for the most part. When I first got there, like I said, like the kitchen was all locals, so they all spoke English to various degrees. Some spoke English well, others spoke enough to communicate to tell me to shut up, and but enough. But by the time I left, everyone spoke English well. And well enough to communicate, to work together, but there was a lot of different languages. There was Tagalog, there was Cantonese, there was Nepalese, there was a couple others, but so it was like a whole mix of everything.
While you were the general manager, how did you have to deal with any of the customers? Like,
all the time, yeah. For the most part, customers were really, really good. Really good. Hong Kong is a very its food and beverage industry is very loved. People really, really enjoy going out to eat. Whether it's to a local cha-chan-tang, which is just like a local eater, like a taqueria, basically, to like a Michelin-star restaurant. People love going out to eat, and they understand the importance of what the food and beverage industry is, because Hong Kong, as much as it is a financial city, it's a tourist city. And so yeah, I did have to deal with a lot of customers. Actually, a lot of the friends I made out there started as customers. But just like in any other restaurant or anywhere, you're gonna get some shitty customers. Yeah. And
but was there like a language barrier, or most?
Not necessarily. No. So our demographic, as far as like our customers, during dinner was a lot of expats, or just people who basically spoke English, because it was a Western restaurant. And so when it comes to a Western restaurant, you're not gonna get a lot of like locals that go. During lunchtime was a little different, because people are working and, they want to get some lunch, and everything. But, so there wasn't really too much of a language barrier. And if there was always someone I could like go and talk to, like, hey, can you help me translate here and there? But, no, not really.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that's cool.
At least not at work, outside of, outside in life. Yeah. That was probably like one of the most difficult things to get used to. Going to 7-Eleven and some dude's yelling at you because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But no, other than that, no. I mean, Hong Kong's a very like international city, so I mean, it was a British colony up until 97. So English is a big part of its culture.
How different was it cooking cooking Mexican food at, in San Diego to cooking it in Hong Kong?
Luckily, at the restaurant 11 West Side, I don't think I've even said the restaurant's name. 11 West Side. So what Esdras and because all the owners are from LA. Esdras is from here in Calexico, but he made his name up in LA. There's John Alfan, whose family is from Hong Kong, but he was born and raised in LA. There's Daniel Yun, who also is from LA, and Channing. For the life of me, I can't remember his last name. Sorry, Channing. But they're all from LA, so they all grew up with that, with the Mexican food and everything. Mm-hmm. But John, he had some businesses over in Hong Kong already, and they wanted to open something. Like, well, what do we do? What's missing? And if you look into the history of the food scene in Hong Kong, the biggest joke is all the Mexican food sucks. Mm-hmm. So they're like, well, let's just do some Mexican food. And they had met Esdras in LA, and they're like, who do we bring? And they're like, oh, well, why don't bring Esdras, who's known as the Taco King of LA, you know? And so one of their biggest things was we don't want to switch the recipes or all that too much to cater to the flavors, because the flavors are different, and so it wasn't that different because they didn't make too much changes to accommodate to the palate of Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm. They wanted to keep it authentic.
Yeah, they wanted to keep it authentic, and they did. They really, really did. And so it wasn't that much different. We didn't make guacamole exactly how we would make it here. The pickled onions, todo, el pico de gallo, todo, everything was the same. So it wasn't too much of a difference. The only I think the biggest difference was the spiciness, because an Asian spice is more punch you in the face type. So you get some Szechuan or something like peppers. It's just a numbing. It's just and it's like when you're eating hot Cheetos and you just can't stop eating them, pero 10,000 times as hot. Mm-hmm. Whereas Mexican spice or Mexican salsas and stuff like that, they're a nuanced salsa. They have levels to the flavors. You roast the tomatoes and the jalapenos, and you do this and that. So there's more savory.
Yeah, spicy,
it's not punch you in the face. Mm-hmm. Spice. It's okay, this is there's something to this, So, but as far as cooking over there and cooking here, there wasn't really that much difference because of the way that they decided to run it.
Yeah. But it's a little bit. It's not let's say Mexicali taco, whereas more street food, and it was more a little bit more high.
See, the tacos were street tacos.
Okay.
There was nothing different about them. They were authentic. And we had steaks, we had enchiladas, and all the higher end stuff was a little bit higher end, but it was all very authentic stuff that you could taste here. The difference is that they don't have that over there. It's an imported food. It's like if someone opened up a fine dining French restaurant here, or even not even fine dining, something that you would just find like a bistro on the French street. To them over there, it's perfectly normal, and I'm not gonna pay $5 for a taco. But if you take it somewhere else that they've never experienced it, they're gonna pay it. I would see people eating tacos with fork and knife and ordering bottles of wine, and I'm like, what the fuck? But hey, I'm not gonna, whatever. And it's cool, but it kind of makes you realize the things that you take not so much for granted, but seem like everyday life to you, are interesting and new, and can really bring a new perspective of what food can be to someone that's never had it. You know, so I had to like kick myself down, be like, what are you doing? You know, it's like, nah, let people enjoy it the way they're gonna enjoy it. If they dig it, they dig it, and you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they're paying for it, and they're
It's not just pay for it. You know, it's cool.
So while you were in Hong Kong, you not only did you, struggle with the language and all these new people, but you lived some experiences there. Can you share a little bit about?
So apart from like food and all that, it was definitely a let me take a sip before I start talking real quick. I feel that I was, and I feel like I don't want to use the word lucky because that has like a positive connotation, but as someone who studied journalism and worked in newspapers and you know, I do feel lucky in a sense to have been there during this historical period for Hong Kong that was just nonstop. It just felt like nonstop of shit. So I got there and I was like, oh, cool. Like, this is Hong Kong, all the lights and everything. Like, I knew nothing about Hong Kong. Nothing. I had seen it like in a couple movies and this and whatnot, you know. I knew nothing about it. So I get there and I'm like, okay, like if I'm going to be here, I got to know about it, you know. I'm not just going to be some dude on the street that doesn't know shit. And so first thing I did was I researched just Hong Kong on Google, you know, learned some stuff. Learned how it was a British colony up until 1997 when it was handed over back to China. China made the promise to keep it. It was one country, two systems. Whereas like the mainland China kept whatever it is they were doing, whereas Hong Kong was allowed to keep their freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom.
Kind of like a democratic country.
Exactly. A lot of reasons for that. Hong Kong was a big moneymaker for China, but then it wasn't. And so anyway, all that. Did my own research, and I watched this documentary that was on Netflix called Joshua, which was about the umbrella movement, which is I forget exactly how it started. I feel like an asshole, but it showed me that people were like, because people might go and think Hong Kong is very superficial, like they just care about money and name brands and carrying all this and all this. And I felt that way too, just simply being a superficial person in the city. But then I saw that and it kind of like made you realize like, no, like these people really, really care about the city. So that was just always in the back of the mind. So like, all right, cool, you know, live life, keep going. And then this get hit with like the number 10 typhoon, biggest typhoon that had ever been recorded in Hong Kong. I was like, hey, this is I mean, it's not like devastating. Yeah, a lot of bad shit happened to like villages around the outskirts of Hong Kong, but like this is something I'd probably never see. And I thought that was it. Like, oh, that's gonna be like the craziest thing I'm gonna see, you know. And then these protests started. Just a quick breakdown. Some Hong Kong dude had taken his girlfriend to Taiwan, and bad things happened. He murdered her, came back, and then they couldn't act. There was no like extradition treaty in between Taiwan and Hong Kong, and so China proposed a law that would allow extradition, and they based it on this one case. China proposed a law that would allow extradition between Hong Kong and Taiwan, but they also like snuck in like it would also allow extradition between Hong Kong and China, and so people are like, fuck that, you know, because Hong Kongers are Hong Kongers. Don't call them Chinese. They nah. They're like, we're not Chinese. We're Hong Kong. And they have their whole own issues. I didn't grow up there. I can't get into it, but I know what I see and I know what I was told. And so like, no, fuck that. And so that's when like the protest started, you know, everything. And, you know, it was like 1 million, 2 million people out on the streets. And And I was like, this is insane. Like, I have to see this, you know? And of course, you know, I'd already been there for a year and a half, almost 2 years. So I felt an affinity for the city, for the people. Like, people had taken me in, you know? So, like, I need to see this. I need to see what's going on. And then it was all peaceful and everything and blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, the police force in Hong Kong had been seen as one of the most reliable and trustworthy in the world. Up until then. All of a sudden, I don't know what happened. You know, I'm not privy to details and all that, but all of a sudden they just got violent, shooting tear gas into crowds and beating people. It was sad and disgusting to see, you know. And so it just escalated for like a whole year. There was, you know, actually, what's today? The 31st?
Yeah.
Today, August 31st, one of the worst episodes during that period of initial protest. And so in one of the stations, one of the train stations called Mongkok, after protests and everything, people were just trying to get home, you know. And in the station, the train stopped, doors opened, and there was just like police officers in full riot gear, triad members, just running into the trains and just beating kids. You can see videos on it. Like, all you have to do is look up 831 Hong Kong, and that's when it just all escalated, and it just got really, really bad. And every day, no matter whether you were a part of it or not, or just, you know, a local that just wanted to stay safe, or an expat that didn't care, you know, it was on your shoulders. It weighed on your shoulders. So that whole experience, it was like it lasted almost a year, you know, and that was intense. I went to protest. I went to marches twice. Only once did I stay until it turned into some shit. So I was really running from tear gas. I had minimal tear gas, and
It was crazy.
it was painful. So to be hit with it like full on, I can't even imagine. I saw dudes standing on top of fires waving flags, and it was so yeah. In a historical sense, I do feel lucky to have been there. And then after that, boom, COVID.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And so after that, boom, COVID. And it was crazy because the protests were still going on. But as soon as like COVID became a thing, like everyone was just like, nah, like we're staying in, like forget all the, like not forget it, but we're not gonna risk our health. Like we'll die to fight for our freedom, but we're not gonna die over a sickness that we can prevent. And so that was a whole other thing. And that was like I want to say like 3, 4, 5 months before it was even mentioned in the States.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was a whole other thing, and that affected us. I think that probably affected me more than anything. The protests were like, this is history in the making, you know. Whereas COVID was like, all right, we got to shut down. You got to stay inside. We can't do nothing. And it was like, fuck, man. Like I'm already out there by myself, but it was interesting to see how people just came together regardless of what they believed or regardless of their political leanings or whatever. It's like, no, like, this is for everybody.
Yeah.
This is for everybody. So we're all just gonna do what we have to do, come together and just
Shut down, lock down.
Yeah. And like Hong Kong has been, I've and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Hong Kong has been one of like the lowest, has really like confined it and taken care of it. And I mean, I saw dudes in like full hazmat suits raiding apartments and shit. Yeah, and but they really contained it. because they've been through it,
Yeah,
like
with
SARS and
SARS,
all that other stuff. They've been through it. Like, nah, this isn't a joke. Let's get it done. And they're coming out of it, and, but
is what happened to the restaurant? Did you guys shut down?
the restaurant, we luckily we never had to shut down.
Oh.
We did have to close for actual service, but we were always allowed to or able to do takeaway or delivery and stuff like that. There's like there's apps like DoorDash and stuff like that out there, so we never had to fully shut down, whereas a lot of restaurants did. And so we feel very, very lucky that we never had to.
Was your family more worried when you were, there during the riots or during COVID?
I think they were more worried during the riots. Yeah. I think they were more worried about the riots because you can see that, like on TV or on YouTube and stuff. You see the violence. You see what's going on. Whereas with like COVID and stuff, it's like, it's a very like broad. You don't see it really happening, And also like the States has never really experienced something like that. So I don't think up until now, I don't think they really understand the gravity of it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's like the flu, And so they weren't so worried about it during that. They sent me like a box full of masks, which is dope.
Your parents?
Yeah, my parents. And there was like a shortage of masks at that time. So I just kept them at the restaurant. I was like, yo, whatever you guys need, just grab. But they're, when you see images of something, like in journalism, say if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
COVID people weren't dying in the States yet. So it wasn't that big of a deal. But yeah, they were definitely worried during the protests.
Yeah, and I feel that, in that part of the world, you always see people wearing masks. Like, if they have like a cold, the flu, like...
That tripped me out when I first got there. I was like, what is people wearing surgical masks for? And I was just like, you know what? I don't know. I'll figure it out. And I asked one day, like, someone at work was wearing. I was like, why are you wearing it? Because I have a cough. Like, what the fuck you mean?
Yeah, and it's normal for...
Yeah, perfectly normal.
Yeah.
And, I hope it becomes normal here, but,
Good luck with that.
I don't want mean comments on both our Instagram.
I know. So, I mean... What are your plans now? Like, any plans of going back to...
My plans now. I don't think I'm going to go back. Not because I don't want to or not because I don't love it. It's because I think that was a period of life. I see my life in chapters, That's a chapter. And it was a great chapter, and... good, bad, whatever it was a really, really good chapter. And to go back and revisit that, I think it would take away from what it was. I would love to go back and visit, obviously for like a couple weeks or something. I still have friends out there, people I still talk to, time difference makes it hard, but you make a choice. What I want to do now more than anything, honestly, is I want to stay here for a while. I want to, every experience, everything I've done here, I want to bring it out. I want to do something here. Right now, I'm at Inferno in El Centro, the one at the mall. It's all right, And they got good pizzas, they got good burgers, it's chilling. But
would you want to open like your own thing?
That's the end game. Mm-hmm. That's the ultimate goal. Right now,
but is it in this chapter or like once you're ready to sit down?
It's in like if we're talking literature allegories, well, I'm setting it up in this chapter, but this chapter right now is I kind of want to like how do I explain? I guess if we're getting literal, what I want to do is like pop-ups right now. I have one planned up coming up here in the next month or so. Where I want to test things, I want to test flavors. I want to test techniques that I've learned. I want to talk to my friends that I've made throughout the years and ask them what they think about this. I want to I want to build. I want to create my own style. I guess because I feel like I've learned a lot, but everything I've done has been someone else's thing,
flavor and
someone else's flavor, someone else's techniques, someone else's whole philosophy, and I'm ready to get out of that. Take everything I've learned, which of course I appreciate and everything, and the people that I trust and believe in, ask them to critique, but it's I want to build me, and then the next chapter, I want to open up my own place. And people tell me like, "Oh, you're stupid. Why would you want to open somewhere here in Calexico or in the Valley?" So the way I see it is like, example. The other day at work, I made lamb. With like a brie cheese and whatnot. I think maybe like one person had ever had lamb or brie cheese, and it's just my asshole self. I was like, "What the fuck you mean you never had lamb?" But then I realized like, there's nowhere here that offers it.
Mm-hmm.
How can people appreciate things that they've never been exposed to? And so that's what I want to do. I want to expose and bring those things to the Valley.
Yeah.
Calexico mainly because that's home.
Yeah, for sure.
But the Valley. So as far as like what's coming up next for me, I think I'm chilling right here.
Chilling here.
I'm good.
That's cool.
I'm good. I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, we get to see what you learn, like you said,
And I feel like if one person, like I feel like people get discouraged to not do something because people are discouraging them. Yeah, I mean, you're from Calesa, it's like hate, But nah, like if one person just ignores all that hate or negativity, and just says, you know what, I'm going to do it. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe you fail and you got to move in with your jefa. But if one person doesn't do it, then no one's going to do it.
Yeah. And then, at the end of the day, it's like, if you don't do it, you'll be like, what if,
It's like you doing your podcast, you're exposed, you're not exposing because that sounds bad, but you are presenting like people that are doing things to a wider audience, and so I commend you on that. That's dope.
Thanks.
And again, I appreciate you having me on here. But the world has to be opened up to people.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. And I've been following this author he's a writer for the LA Times, Gustavo Arellano.
Oh yeah.
And he was on a podcast one time, and he's like, we're like Mexicans are like crabs in a boiling pot of water. We're holding everybody down. And that, and I guess that's what you're saying when you tell people like, I want to open something like just stay down here with me, be what's the word I'm trying to find,
complacent.
Yeah, like why try something new? We're cool, why risk or put yourself out there when you're cool down here with nobody seeing you?
Yeah, just chill, whatever. It's like, nah, like I'm not trying to like nothing bad about COs and board, but I'm not trying to do that. I have like a 2.5 kids with a white picket fence. Like, nah, that's not me, I just want to like all the knowledge I've gained, like if I don't do something with it, then what's the point? And not just me, I mean like in general, people who have knowledge, it's their responsibility to do something with it and to present it to someone that may not have it. And so that's why I want to stay here.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, where can people follow you and kind of like?
So to be honest, I'm not I don't post a lot on like social media, but sometimes I'll post some random stuff. But as as these pop-ups and stuff start to happen, they can follow me on Instagram at Heric Rubio, my name, and on Facebook, my name, Heric Rubio. That's pretty. I don't do TikTok or Snapchat or none of that. Nah.
Yeah, me neither.
So
I'm on. I mean, I spend a lot of time on TikTok, but I don't post any TikTok.
you know what? I was watching like some cooking videos that were posted on Facebook from TikTok, and I'm just like, you know what? Maybe I should just silently join real quick.
You know what? It's addictive. It's like,
Yeah, I can imagine, because I'm a very visual person, and so I'm on Instagram. I don't post shit, but you know, I'm on there all day watching on YouTube, also learning a lot. But
yeah, I think that, you know, I mean, that's something that I don't know if we want to do it, but if you're gonna do pop-ups and open something eventually, you know, social media is really important.
Yeah, and when it comes to it, then I'll start annoying people on Instagram, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so I'm just kind of keeping it low key right now until I'm ready, and then we'll blow it up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, man. Well, thank you. Unless any closing thoughts, anything that
no, man. I just appreciate you. Thank you for having me on Calexico Brewing for letting us sit here for an hour and a half, chill and talk shit. And everyone and anyone, you knew who you are, that's gotten me up until this point, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Esdras, shout out. Westside Hospitality, what up? Yeah. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for sharing your stories and your knowledge, you know, everything that you learned so far. Hopefully, you know, pretty soon we'll see something pop up or in the future. But thank you again for being on. Really, I know it was kind of random, like me reaching out and
it's cool. I like random.
But yeah, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate the conversation. And thank you guys for listening or watching. Once again, thank you Calexico Brewing Company, and thank you all my sponsors for the sponsorship. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Peace.